Welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is a special edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live, download our free app, and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And I got a cat on the program who I have been after for a long time, a man who really started in the most humble beginnings, getting gigs with the great Lou Donaldson and playing the thesaurus of scales, tireless bandstand exercises with Sonny Stitt, Don Patterson, Billy James. He came up in the scrap iron the steel city of Pittsburgh, and he's coming. Actually, he lives in Arizona, and at least one of his houses, and he's coming down to Tucson for the Jazz Festival. My man, George Benson, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
It's an incredible introduction you gave me, Jake.
I mean, it's nothing, bro. I mean, I really wanted to ask you. This is one of the. I've been thinking about this for a while. I saw a picture of you and this cat from about 1973, both in like three-piece suits, looking fantastic. And sometimes my man Pat Martino, because he had a brain aneurysm, he doesn't have a great memory. But I wanted you to talk about Pat Azera, because you guys were peers coming up together, learning on the bandstand together.
That's true.
You talk about any memory of Pat that you had at playing at Smalls back in the day, or anything?
Well, first of all, he's one of my favorite people and one of my favorite musicians, and especially one of my favorite guitar players. I mean, he's always been phenomenal. I know his teacher way back in Philly. I met him later in life. I said, I had to meet the man who taught this young fellow so much about music.
Who was his teacher?
Because when he was 17 years old, he could almost outplay anybody.
Right. Now, who was his teacher?
Dennis Sandoli.
Dennis Sandoli, that's right. Yeah, Pat was like a machine gunner. I saw a picture of you two from some festival, and I was cracking up. And Pat doesn't really remember what he was like back then.
Well, I can tell you this, man. He was a young wizard. He had technique like nobody else, and nobody could match his technique. I was 19 when I met him. I had just come to New York to play with Jack McDuff, and I thought I was something special. Here I was playing with one of the top organists in the world, and I was only 19. And everybody was mentioning that. Are you the new kid, 19, playing with Jack McDuff? I said, yeah, that's right. And so where you going now? I said, I'm going up to Small's Paradise to hear Willis Jackson's band, because that was Jack's rival. Jack admired Willis Jackson, the great saxophone player. When I got there, I saw this little Sicilian. I knew he was in the Italian family.
Right.
He was very thin at the time because he was very young. He's a nice-looking boy and all that Italian hair. And I said to myself, now what is this young man going to do with that music? Because Willis Jackson was playing one of those old-time R&B things with a great backbeat,
Oh, I dig.
I said, now what is this kid going to do, man? And then the band stopped suddenly. Boom! It was a break. And he lit into that guitar like nothing I ever heard. And I said to myself, man, is this New York? If this kid plays like this, man, I ain't got a chance here. I got ready to go back home.
But you didn't. And George, I so many things are running through my head. But I wanted to know about, the great John Hurd is from Pittsburgh too, the bass player. He used to sit on the street.
True.
He used to stay on the street and play upright bass. People would say, "Hey, man, you sound more like Ray Brown. Come on, come on." And he's like, "I'm trying. This is younger." But I mean, were you rolling with the Tommy Turrentines and the J.C. Moseses and those cats and the Booker Irvins?
Well, I had played with J.C. Moses when I was a little boy. I was 7 years old working in a nightclub, and J.C. Moses was the percussionist. This was before he invented avant-garde drums. He was the first of his kind. When I heard him play that stuff, I said, what kind of music is this? J.C. Hurd was a very laid-back, very quiet man. I mean, he used to show up at the jam sessions, which they didn't allow me to join because I was known around Pittsburgh as a singer. And if I went to a jam session, all the girls in the room would say, Sing something, Joe, and they hated that.
Of course, they wanted the instrumental burn. They didn't want you stealing the girls.
Yeah, that's true. And I couldn't play guitar that well anyway in those days. That was a secondary thing for me, and it was just something to hold in my hand to impress people when I was on the stand, But I was not an improvisationalist. I was searching for basic chords, and I did not understand jazz music until I started going to jam sessions. Now, I'm talking about the days. I was about 16 or 17. By the time I was 19, I started hunting up jam sessions, and got along a little better. I ran into JC in the orchestra when I played at the Universal Amphitheater many years later. Like, I guess I was about 32 years old when I saw him again. And he was a total professional, and he was one of the guys very well liked in L.A. at the time. But anyway, man, what else you got for me?
Well, I wanted to ask you, I've been on this mission for almost 6 years, and I talked to a lot of your brothers, cats like Phil Upchurch and Lou Donaldson, Dr. Lonnie twice. I got on the phone with Wah Wah Watson this morning, and he said, you better get better real quick. And so, it's been a lot. I just wanted you to talk about your concept of love. And ultimately, George, if you can talk, because there's plenty of cats out, it's even more, the supply and demand issue is really pretty intense now. And I just wanted you to talk about a time early in your career where you faced a lot of adversity, and through the love of your mentors, you got a break and overcame it and got to be, put you on the path that you're on today.
Well, I understand that we can't do anything alone. We need each other. And we borrowed from each other. We got each other gigs, and we pointed to gigs, and we pointed to the musicianship that other was presenting. But I didn't know which direction my potential success was going to come. It was John Hammond that made the difference. He heard me at a R&B club. I was playing behind Go Go Girl. And James Brown used to come down from the Apollo, because it was right down the street, and he would sit in with us many nights. And he asked me to join his organization. He wanted me to open his show. That's what he said. And my crazy answer was, and I remember I was talking to one of the greatest performers of his time. I told Mr. Brown, I said, well, Mr. Brown, we're jazz musicians, Can you imagine me saying that to a man who was rich and was offering us the opportunity of a lifetime to open his show? Wow. And I said that to him. Well, I paid the price. It took me 11 years to get in a position where I was had some importance in my career. But John Hammond said it back then. He said, I perceive that you do a lot of things. You're very versatile, and you do them all well. He said, but if you are known as a jazz musician first, your career will have longevity. And that turned out to be the real truth of the matter. So I've been able to turn those things that I've learned onto musicians who came up with me, or the older guys who were guiding us. I would pass that love back and let them know that we depended a lot on them, and that they are responsible for who we are today.
I don't have the quote in front of me, but Lou Donaldson said that you and Lonnie Smith at a certain point were actually unemployed, and he said, you come join my band.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I can say this, because I've always worked. There was a time when I first went to New York, I worked 48 weeks a year, and I was always on some gig somewhere, on my way to a gig. So we didn't make much money, but we worked a lot. And that's what helped us hone in on our art. Can you beat a man who's been doing something for 10 years, 48 weeks a year? No. I don't care what he does, a carpenter, electrician, a plumber, a guitar player. If he does it every day, 48 weeks a year for 10 years, he's got something under his belt.
I think you're spot on. I just wonder today how I would like you to talk. This is very important. I'm 38 years old. I was born in 1978. Your career was well underway. In fact, you were already a star, an international star. And what I find today that's a little bit humbling, I'm not a musician, but it's that, I don't believe that the vocabulary of any music, boogie woogie, blues, jazz, whatever, I don't think any vocabulary music can grow in the four walls of academia. And you didn't learn, you learned on the bandstand. And I want you to talk about some nonverbal leadership qualities that you use today with your band, because we're a society that hangs on words now. I mean, it's incredible. And Sonny Stitt didn't talk much. Those cats didn't talk much. Billy James said, he told this keyboardist, Bobby Pierce, you'll see as we go on tour, our stamina is so strong, we're going to outwork people. People will be fatigued. They can't keep up. I want you to talk about nonverbal communication on the bandstand, George.
If that's possible, I don't really understand exactly. I think I do, but let me just interject something, or inject something. And like he says, the great saxophonist you just mentioned,
Sonny
Stitt, he had a liking for me. He knew that I had potential. I was just getting off the ground. I knew how to swing and stuff. And I used to go see him a lot because he was such an expert at what he did. He was like the staple he was like the new Charlie Parker, but he played tenor now. And he was, everything he said was very important to me. And I was one of the few people he would allow in his dressing room when we were on gigs. And so I heard him speak a little more than most cats did. But I had a tremendous respect for him because I knew he put in time on his instrument. He played all the time. Even when he was in his dressing room, the words would come in between the notes that he was playing, And I understood the notes better than I did his playing. But when he spoke profoundly. He gave me a concept of how I should view myself and my music. Same way with Miles Davis. He did the same thing. And Cannonball Adderley told me things that I just couldn't even imagine. It's a shame he didn't live long enough to see that everything he said about me came true.
What could you tell me I would love you to tell the audience like a couple of pearls of wisdom. A lot of these cats from that generation, you go back to Vassar Clemens playing bluegrass or Sonny Stitt, they could say 4 words and it was like the most prophetic thing in the world.
Yeah, that's true.
I know it's
true.
Well,
Cannonball Adderley backstage of the Apollo Theater. I didn't even know he knew me. But I went back to see him, to meet him, and I hung out with him. And he played on that stage. He played one of the greatest solos I've ever heard in my life. And so I went upstairs to praise him because I believe in doing that. When a cat does something good, I praise him. So I was in his dressing room. He said, George, I know you ain't going to believe what I'm saying to you. He said, but first of all, you are not going to be an ordinary cat. He said, you're going to be very successful and you're going to be rich. I said, when is that going to happen, man? It'd be nice if it happened right now. But he stepped out that far and told me things. And he was waiting on his royalties from Mercy, Mercy Me, that Joe Zawinul wrote for him.
Sure.
And so he said, I can't wait to get my first check, so forth. Since those days, millions have gone across my desk, and we take it for granted. But when I think back to the early days, statements like that, how did he envision that I had something that would be that important, And actually we went way beyond anything he even imagined because it was not possible at that time to get that kind of career. The closest cat that came to that was Montgomery in those days. He sold a couple 100,000 records, and that was like phenomenal. But to sell records in the multis of millions, nobody was doing that. And I certainly didn't imagine that I would be doing it. But a few people imagined it. Miles Davis told me that. Cannonball did. Sonny Stitt told me that I was not going to be ordinary. And they did and it was a Thelonious Monk. He compared me to Charlie Christian, the big hero of the time.
Wow.
And I said, wow. Man, people think about me like that? I said, I better get on the ball and practice more, and I did.
Well, I mean, this is, I guess I didn't phrase my question well, but Dave Holland told me a story about, when Train joined Miles, he kept going up to Miles and saying, what do you want me to play? What do you want me to play? Miles kept turning his back on him. And finally, Train realized, he hired me because he wants to hear what I have to say. And it was liberating. And I know that you played with all the great, dude, Jack McDuff, Sonny Stitt, Johnny Hammond Smith, the list goes on. I'm saying these guys were your mentors, and I'm just wondering, like, because you weren't learning in a classroom. There was no George Benson guitar book. There was no jazz in the schools. So I'm just trying to find a time when you really were not totally secure with your individual sound, and somebody was expressing to you to just be yourself, but they weren't saying that in those exact words. They were doing it in other ways of communication on the bandstand.
That is a different way of approaching that. I can tell you this. When you said that, it reminded me of the tour I did with Barney Kessel and Jim Hall. It was the Newport Jazz festivals, but they were done overseas, so they had a different name. I can't remember now. But George Wein hired us to do a threesome on stage. And I remember going to my first Italian meal in the house of a great guitar player and arranger. He did films and things, but he was also known as a great guitar player. So he invited us to his house, and his wife made homemade pasta or spaghetti. And I said, is this what spaghetti's supposed to taste like? Wow. And so, but he said to me, he said, George, nobody knows you. I think I was about 24 years old. He said, nobody knows you over here. He said, but I predict that in the next 2 years, you'll be the number one jazz guitar player. And I thought it was a nice thing to say that he liked me that well. But 3 years later, we had the number one status. So the man had a vision. People see things in me that I can't see. I think that the thing that we need to keep doing is playing. When you play, different parts of your personality appear. And it appears to different people in different ways. But when that's the only George Benson they know. They judge you by how you present yourself. And most of my presentation is in music. So when I let myself hang out, try all my inventions, people notice that. Earl Clue told me, he said, George, that new thing you're working on the guitar is very powerful, man. It's going to take you a long way. And he was just a kid when he said that. He was 16 or 17 years old,
Yeah, he was like probably out with Michael Henderson on the West Coast. I mean, to me, this is like, I think the other thing I want you to talk about to younger cats, because music is, I'm looking forward to seeing your set down here at the Jazz Fest in Tucson at the Fox Theater, but a lot of music now is very formulaic. You certainly don't have the dawn sessions at the Jockey Club, which I know you went to, and you were burning there, 2 to 6 in the morning, all sorts of craziness. You had so many opportunities to play live, and I want you to, and I couldn't think of asking a better person, the divine, the idea of the music coming through you from the heavens. Is there talk about that?
Wow.
No, it's deep. Listen, man, I've been waiting for you, man. And this is, we don't even have enough time to get into all this, but music, listen, in Weather Report, Zawinul, for as genius as he was, a brilliant writer, Miroslav Vicious and Wayne Shorter and Alphonse Mouzon or Eric Gravatt, those cats could channel music through them from the heavens. Zawinul struggled with it. This is according to Miroslav. But I want you to talk about the music coming through you, as opposed to just monster technique, monster chops. It comes down to feel. Tell me about feel, George.
Well, when you said that, what you just said about the heavens and so forth, I'm a Bible man. I'm a Bible student. And what I admire the most is the statements that stick with me and become part of my life. One of them is that every man has his gift of God or his proper gift of God, something like in that kind of statement, that form.
Mm-hmm.
And I perceive it in people. There are no two people alike, even though they try, because we learn from our masters in front of us. They are the teachers. So we learn everything we can learn from them, but we don't end up sounding like them. Our personality comes from how much energy we put into it. So if you put it in, you're going to get it out. But it is there. Our Creator has given us the ability to do a lot of things. You can branch off. Ron Carter said to me one day, he said to one of his friends, he said, man, George Benson could have been a scientist or a doctor or anything he wanted to be, because those things branch off into different directions, there's a lot of mathematics in music. I'm not a mathematician, and I don't like blood. I'm scared to death when I see blood. I don't like it. So I know I couldn't be a doctor. A scientist, yeah. I channeled it through my music and invented some things that had not been done on the guitar. And how I did it was I asked myself a question. How come Montgomery didn't figure this out? How come he didn't do it like this? Why didn't he add this note over here to his octaves? And I said, well, there's nothing to prevent you from doing it. So,
I dig, man.
So I jumped on it.
I dig it, man.
Years later, it turned out to be a staple in my playing without me even trying to force it in. I just kept doing it, and pretty soon people began to notice it. And it became part of what they're calling the George Benson sound or whatever that means. It became part of my personality. And that's about as close as I can get to. I think about one statement that someone said about, I know who it was. It was Elvin Jones who said this about John Coltrane. He said, man, it was like God sent us an angel, and he stayed with us a little while, and then he disappeared. That's what he said about John Coltrane. I thought that was pretty profound. I mean, I don't think in that direction because all of us come from the same God. But I like his assessment of John Coltrane not being ordinary and that he was something very special. So that's why I remember that statement. But I have to go, my friend. I got to go.
I'll let you listen. All I ask for you is this. I would love to pick up on our conversation down the road, man. I really would love to have another 20 half hour with you. I got a few more things to talk to you about.
All right, my friend.
Love you, man.
Thank you, man.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.